But son, knew you for anyone. Sue discovered something revolutionary. The clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. This isn't about military tactics. It's about strategic positioning. Let me show you exactly what this means. In 2007, while Blockbuster expanded to 9,000 stores, Netflix made a secret decision that changed everything. Netflix didn't fight Blockbuster in the DVD rental market. Instead, they imposed their will by shifting to streaming 5 years before anyone saw it coming. This is what Sun Tzu called imposing your will. You don't react to the game being played, you create an entirely new game. When Eric Yuan left Cisco WebEx to start Zoom, he didn't try to build a better video conferencing tool. He identified the shoe, the void everyone missed. The void wasn't better video quality or more features. It was reliability. WebEx users were frustrated with dropped calls and complicated interfaces. While competitors, focused on adding features. Yuan focused on the shoe making video calls that actually worked every time. Result, when COVID hit in 2020, Zoom went from 10 million to 300 million daily users in just 4 months. Think about Amazon Web Services. While everyone watched Amazon's retail business, Jeff Bezos was secretly building the world's most powerful cloud infrastructure. Today, AWS generates more operating profit than Amazon's entire retail business. They became the director of their opponent's fate because no traditional retailer saw the cloud computing threat until it was too late. Right now, as you watch this video, 3 Fortune 500 companies are losing their market leadership forever. Here's the brutal truth about why. 80% of new products fail within 12 months. Not from lack of effort, but from attacking where competitors are strongest. Meanwhile, companies responding within 5 minutes get 10 times more qualified leads. What if winning isn't about fighting harder, but about choosing where the fight happens? 2,500 years ago, a Chinese general perfected the science of strategic initiative. By the end of this video, you'll never react to market changes again. You'll anticipate them, shape them, and profit from them. But first, let me show you why 89% of strategic initiatives fail. Here's what every business school gets wrong about competition. They teach you to analyze competitors, match their strategies, and fight for the same customers. But son, knew you for anyone. Sue discovered something revolutionary. The clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. This isn't about military tactics. It's about strategic positioning. Let me show you exactly what this means. In 2007, while Blockbuster expanded to 9,000 stores, Netflix made a secret decision that changed everything. Netflix didn't fight Blockbuster in the DVD rental market. Instead, they imposed their will by shifting to streaming 5 years before anyone saw it coming. This is what Sun Tzu called imposing your will. You don't react to the game being played, you create an entirely new game. If this resonates with you, hit that like button. It tells me you're ready to stop following and start leading. Before we dive into Sun Tzu's framework, let's be honest about the 3 traps that keep 97% of executives stuck in reactive mode. Trap number 1, information asymmetry blindness. You analyze what everyone else analyzes: public, financial reports, obvious market trends, surface-level competitor moves. But the real opportunities, they're hiding in spaces no one's looking. Trap number 2, decision paralysis. You want perfect information before moving. But Boston Consulting Group found that every week of delay increases development costs by 15%. While you're analyzing, competitors are acting. And trap number 3, resource scatter. You try to compete everywhere instead of dominating somewhere. Now here's what's fascinating. Every single one of these traps can be solved using Sun Tzu's principle of shu, what Lionel Giles translated as weak points and strong. Think about it this way. Shu, the void, empty space, represents market. Opportunities competitors ignore. Shona, the substance, solid ground, represents areas where competition is fierce and margins are thin. The genius of this framework is that it forces you to ask the right question. Instead of, how do we compete better? You ask, where should we compete? Let me give you a perfect example. When Eric Yuan left Cisco WebEx to start Zoom, he didn't try to build a better video conferencing tool. He identified the shoe, the void everyone missed. The void wasn't better video quality or more features. It was reliability. WebEx users were frustrated with dropped calls and complicated interfaces. While competitors focused on adding features, Yuan focused on the shoe making video calls that actually worked every time. Result, when COVID hit in 2020, Zoom went from 10 million to 300 million daily users in just 4 months. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think finding the shoe is about luck or intuition. It's not. It's about systematic analysis. Are you starting to see the power of this approach? If you are, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. What comes next will change how you think about competition forever. Now let's dive deep into Sun Tzu's most powerful principle for gaining strategic initiative. Be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby, you can be the director of the opponent's fate. This is Lionel Giles' 1910 translation, and it's still the most accurate. But what does this actually mean in modern business? Formlessness doesn't mean being vague, it means being unpredictable. Soundlessness doesn't mean being quiet. It means operating below your competitor's radar. Think about Amazon Web Services. While everyone watched Amazon's retail business, Jeff Bezos was secretly building the world's most powerful cloud infrastructure. Today, AWS generates more operating profit than Amazon's entire retail business. They became the director of their opponent's fate because no traditional retailer saw the cloud computing threat until it was too late. But here's the key insight. Sun Tzu isn't teaching deception. He's teaching strategic information management. Strategic information management is choosing what to reveal and when. Tesla is a master of this. Elon Musk reveals just enough about future products to maintain excitement, but keeps crucial details hidden until launch. Competitors can't copy what they can't fully see. Now, here's where this gets practical for you. The principle of formlessness and soundlessness translates into 3 modern strategies you can implement immediately. Strategy 1, stealth development. Build capabilities quietly before announcing. Strategy 2, misdirection focus. Let competitors see obvious moves while real advantage develops elsewhere. Strategy 3, timing control. Choose when and how to reveal your strategic position. But there's one more layer most people never discover. Sun Tzu says you become the director of the opponent's fate. This isn't about controlling competitors. It's about creating conditions where they make predictable choices. When Netflix moved to streaming, they didn't force Blockbuster to stick with physical stores. They simply made streaming so attractive to consumers that Blockbuster's business model became unsustainable. Now, I know what you're thinking. This ancient stuff sounds interesting, but does it really work in today's digital world? Let me address the 3 biggest objections I hear. Objection 1, ancient strategies don't apply to modern digital markets. Here's the gratuity truth. Human psychology hasn't changed in 2,500 years. Competition is still about gaining advantage. Markets still have inefficiencies and timing still matters. Amazon's entire business model is built on Sun Tzu's principles. Their day 1 philosophy, that's maintaining strategic initiative. Their 70% rule, make decisions with 70% of information. That's exactly what Sun Tzu meant by adapting to changing circumstances. Objection 2, small companies can't compete with big data and unlimited resources. This completely misses the point. Sun Tzu's strategies are specifically designed for the underdog. Remember Eric Yuan and Zoom? He didn't have Microsoft's resources or Cisco's market share. But he understood the shoe that big companies couldn't see because they were too focused on feature wars. The Dora study of 31,000 professionals found that small, agile teams consistently outperform large organizations. Short projects under 6 months have a 67% success rate. Projects over 2 years, only 12% succeed. Objection 3, this is just theoretical philosophy. Wrong. Every principle we're discussing has been tested by billions of dollars in real business results. When Satya Nadella became Microsoft's CEO in 2014, the company was stuck in reactive mode. Their market value was $300 billion, and everyone thought they were finished in the cloud era. Nadella applied pure Sun Tzu thinking. Instead of fighting Google and Amazon in their established territories, he found the shoe, the enterprise. Hybrid cloud market nobody was dominating. He transformed Microsoft's culture from know-it-all to learn-it-all. The results, Microsoft's market value grew from $300 billion to over $3 trillion, a tenfold increase in less than 10 years. But here's what's really fascinating. The principles that worked for ancient Chinese generals work exactly the same way for modern CEOs. The context changes, but the Underlying dynamics of strategic advantage remain constant. If you're starting to see how these ancient insights can revolutionize your modern strategy, hit that like button, because what I'm about to show you next will completely change how you approach competition. The most dangerous misconception that keeps smart people trapped in reactive thinking is the belief that you need to respond to every competitive move. The already won in or none. Companies that win don't respond to competition. They create conditions where competitors respond to them. This is where everything changes. Up until now, we've been building understanding. From this point forward, we're building weapons, strategic weapons, that will make you unstoppable in any competitive environment. Sun Tzu's Chapter 6 gives us 3 specific frameworks for seizing and maintaining strategic initiative. I call them the Trinity of strategic dominance, void detection, initiative, seizure, and position maintenance. But before we dive into each framework, you need to understand the mindset shift that makes everything possible. Most people think strategically once a quarter, maybe once a month. Strategic leaders think strategically every single day. This isn't about spending hours in analysis paralysis. It's about developing strategic radar, the ability to constantly scan for voids and opportunities while executing current plans. Let me show you exactly what this looks like in practice. Sarah Chen, CEO of a 50-person SaaS company, was getting crushed by enterprise competitors with unlimited marketing budgets. Instead of trying to outspend the giants, Sarah activated her strategic radar. She noticed something her competitors missed. Mid-market. Companies between 50 and 250 employees were struggling with compliance automation. The enterprise solutions were too complex and expensive. The small business tools were too limited, but nobody was serving this void in the market. Sarah saw the opportunity and moved fast. She implemented what Sun Tzu calls formless strategy, no big announcements, no flashy marketing campaigns, just systematic execution in the void her competitors couldn't see. 18 months later, Sarah's company had tripled their qualified leads, cut customer churn by 50%, and established themselves as the category leader for mid-market compliance. The giants never saw it coming. But here's the key insight. Sarah didn't just find one void and stop. She built a system for continuously identifying new voids as her market evolved. And that's exactly what we're going to build for you. Not just a one-time strategy, but a systematic approach to strategic dominance that works in any industry, any market, condition, any competitive environment. If you're excited to build this strategic advantage, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. What comes next is the most practical, actionable content you'll find anywhere on strategic positioning. Let me tell you about the moment that changed everything. For Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, it was 2002 and the dot-com crash had just destroyed hundreds of internet companies. Everyone said social networking was dead, but Hoffman saw something others missed. While everyone focused on the carnage in consumer social networking, there was a void. Professional networking had never been properly digitized. Here's where Sun Tzu's principle of soundlessness comes into play. Hoffman didn't announce his grand vision for professional networking. He quietly launched LinkedIn in May 2003 with a simple value proposition: manage your professional contacts online. The genius was in the positioning. While Friendster and MySpace fought for the social networking space, LinkedIn owned the professional space completely. But here's what most people don't know about LinkedIn's strategy. Hoffman applied Sun Tzu's principle of formlessness by constantly evolving the platform's purpose. Adhering started as contact management, became recruitment, then professional publishing, then learning. Each evolution captured a new void before competitors realized it existed. The result? Microsoft acquired LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in 2016. But the real victory wasn't the acquisition price. It was the strategic position that made the company irreplaceable. Now here's the emotional truth most business content won't tell you. Building strategic advantage isn't just about tactics and frameworks. It's about overcoming the fear of being different. Every successful application of Sun Tzu's principles requires you to do something that feels uncomfortable, to move away from the crowd, to build in silence, to trust your analysis over popular opinion. When Hoffman started LinkedIn, venture capitalists told him professional networking would never work online. When Sarah Chen focused on mid-market compliance, industry experts said she was limiting her addressable market. But here's what Sun Tzu understood 2,500 years ago. The majority is almost always wrong about strategic opportunities. If everyone could see the void, it wouldn't be a void anymore. This is why Sun Tzu's quote about being extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness, is so powerful. It's not just about hiding from competitors, it's about having the courage to build something others don't understand yet. And that brings us to the most important question you'll face in implementing these strategies. Are you willing to be misunderstood in the short term, to be invaluable in the long term? Because that's exactly what strategic initiative requires. When you find the void, when you position in the shoe, you're going to face criticism, doubt, and pressure to follow the crowd back into the shuri, the competitive battlefield. But remember what Sun Tzu said, thereby you can be the director of the opponent's fate. When you have the courage to stay in your strategic position, you don't just win, you define what winning means. LinkedIn didn't just succeed in social networking, they created an entirely new category called professional networking. Tesla didn't just build electric cars, they redefined what a car company could be. And that's the ultimate expression of Sun Tzu's strategic philosophy. Not just avoiding competition, but making competition irrelevant by playing an entirely different game. So, as we move into the practical frameworks that will give you this power, ask yourself, what game are you currently playing? And more importantly, what game could you create where you're the only player? Because in the next section, I'm going to show you exactly how to identify those game-changing opportunities using Sun Tzu's most practical and powerful framework. This is where ancient wisdom becomes modern weapons. If you're ready to stop playing other people's games and start creating your own, let me know in the comments. Write "create my game" and I'll know you're ready for what comes next. Now we unlock the true arsenal. I've distilled Chapter 6 into 5 strategic weapons that will transform how you approach competition forever. Each weapon is based on a specific quote from Lionel Giles' 1910 translation. Sornitum, the most authoritative English version we have. Let's begin with the first weapon, the science of strategic positioning. Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted. This isn't about speed. It's about controlling the battlefield before the battle begins. Tesla mastered this principle. While traditional automakers focused on improving gasoline engines, Tesla was first in the field of electric vehicle infrastructure. They didn't just build cars, they built the entire ecosystem. By 2023, Tesla operates over 45,000 supercharger stations globally, while competitors are still scrambling to build their networks. Here's what's brilliant. Tesla didn't just win the electric car race. They made gasoline infrastructure irrelevant for their customers. That's strategic positioning at its highest level. While competitors fight over EV technology, Tesla already owns the battlefield. How can you be first in the field in your industry? Your strategic positioning audit identify 3 emerging trends in your market. Pick one where you can establish infrastructure, partnerships, or capabilities before competitors recognize the opportunity. Remember, being first isn't about speed, it's about vision. The companies that dominate tomorrow are positioning themselves today in spaces their competitors don't even see. What battlefield are you preparing for? That doesn't exist yet. All men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. This is about the difference between visible moves and invisible systems. Your tactics should be obvious. Your strategy should be mysterious. Amazon Web Services is the perfect example. Everyone could see Amazon's retail tactics or fast delivery, competitive pricing, customer obsession, but nobody saw the strategic foundation AWS was being built in stealth mode. Today, AWS generates more operating profit than Amazon's entire retail business. Over 70% of Amazon's total operating income. The genius of invisible strategy is that competitors can copy your tactics, but can't replicate your system. They see the iPhone's beautiful design but miss the integrated ecosystem of hardware, software, services, and developer relationships that makes it truly powerful. Your strategic invisibility framework. Document your unique process, core philosophy, and resource leverage system. Make your tactics visible and easy to understand. Keep your strategic foundations invisible and hard to replicate. This creates sustainable, competitive advantage. The most powerful strategies are the ones nobody sees coming. What's the invisible foundation that powers your visible success? Take a moment to identify it, because if you can't see it, your competitors might discover it first. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. This is the death of best practices. Netflix understood this perfectly when they killed their own DVD business to embrace streaming. Netflix didn't wait for someone else to disrupt their DVD business. They disrupted themselves. In 2007, when DVD was generating 97% of their revenue, they launched streaming. By 2020, streaming generated 99% of their revenue. That's strategic adaptability, changing your methods before circumstances force you to. Contrast this with Kodak, who invented the digital camera in 1975, but clung to film because it was their best practice. They had the technology but lacked strategic adaptability. Result: bankruptcy in 2012 after 132 years in business. The world doesn't reward past victories, only present adaptability. Your adaptability audit list, your top 3 winning tactics from the past 2 years. For each one, ask what would make this obsolete. Then ask, how can I evolve this before it becomes obsolete? Strategic adaptability means changing your methods while your competitors are still celebrating their victories. The companies that survive and thrive are those that make their own strategies obsolete before their competitors do. What winning tactic do you need to evolve or abandon to stay ahead of the curve? By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemy must divide his. This is the ultimate leverage. You focus, they fragment. Southwest Airlines mastered this principle and became the most profitable airline in history, while American Delta and United spread resources across complex hub and spoke systems. Southwest concentrated on point-to-point flights with a single aircraft type, the Boeing 737. This focus created operational excellence: 10-minute gate turnarounds versus industry average of 35 minutes. Lower costs, higher profits, better customer satisfaction. McKinsey research confirms this. Companies focusing resources on 3 or fewer business areas are 52% more profitable than diversified competitors. But here's the key. Southwest didn't just focus randomly. They studied their competitors' dispositions and concentrated where competitors were weakest: secondary airports with underserved routes. Your force concentration matrix map your current resource allocation across all activities. Identify the 20% of activities generating 80% of results. Then ask, what would happen if I allocated 60% of my resources to just these high-impact activities? This is strategic concentration in action. Power comes from concentration, not dispersion. While your competitors spread their efforts across multiple fronts, you can dominate by concentrating overwhelming force in carefully chosen battles. What's your point of concentration? The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. Google's 70-20-10 rule embodies this perfectly. 70% core business, 20% adjacent projects, 10% experimental moonshots. Competitors never know where the next breakthrough will come from. This strategic unpredictability forces competitors to spread their defensive resources across multiple fronts. While Google focused 70% on search dominance, the 20% gave us Gmail and Maps, and the 10% is developing autonomous vehicles and quantum computing. Competitors can't defend against everything, so they defend against nothing effectively. Amazon applies the same principle across retail, cloud computing, logistics, entertainment, and AI. Jeff Bezos called it day one thinking, always exploring new frontiers. The result: competitors never know which Amazon initiative will become the next AWS level disruption. so they can't focus their counter strategies effectively. Your unpredictability portfolio. Allocate 10% of your time or resources to exploring 3 completely different opportunities. Don't announce these explorations. Keep them invisible until they show promise. This creates strategic options while keeping competitors guessing about your next move. The ultimate strategic advantage is making your competitors' planning impossible. When they can't predict your next move, they can't prepare effective counter strategies. What 3 experimental initiatives could you start this month to create strategic unpredictability? These 5 weapons become exponentially more powerful when combined. Tesla demonstrates this perfectly: strategic positioning, strategic invisibility, strategic adaptability, strategic concentration, and strategic unpredictability. Working together, if you're finding these strategic weapons valuable, hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on. This helps more strategists discover these frameworks. And here's the crucial question: which of these 5 weapons will you implement first? Choose one and commit to mastering it in the next 30 days. But mastering these weapons is only the beginning. The true power lies in understanding the fundamental shift that makes all strategy possible. The insight that will transform your entire approach to competition. This is the moment where everything changes. Are you ready for the ultimate revelation? By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated while the enemy must divide his. This is the ultimate leverage. You focus, they fragment. Southwest Airlines mastered this principle and became the most profitable airline in history, while American Delta and United spread resources across complex hub and spoke systems. Southwest concentrated on point-to-point flights with a single aircraft type, the Boeing 737. This focus created operational excellence: 10-minute gate turnarounds versus industry average of 35 minutes. Lower costs, higher profits, better customer satisfaction. McKinsey research confirms this: companies focusing resources on 3 or fewer business areas are 52% more profitable than diversified competitors. But here's the key: Southwest didn't just focus randomly. They studied their competitors' dispositions and concentrated where competitors were weakest: secondary airports with underserved routes. Your force concentration matrix map your current resource allocation across all activities. Identify the 20% of activities generating 80% of results. Then ask, what would happen if I allocated 60% of my resources to just these high-impact activities? This is strategic concentration in action. Power comes from concentration, not dispersion. While your competitors spread their efforts across multiple fronts, you can dominate by concentrating overwhelming force in carefully chosen battles. What's your point of concentration? The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. Google's 70 keywords 2010 rule embodies this perfectly. 70% core business, 20% adjacent projects, 10% experimental moonshots. Competitors never know where the next breakthrough will come from. This strategic unpredictability forces competitors to spread their defensive resources across multiple fronts. While Google focused 70% on search dominance, the 20% gave us Gmail and Maps, and the 10% is developing autonomous vehicles and quantum computing. Competitors can't defend against everything, so they defend against nothing effectively. Amazon applies the same principle across retail, cloud computing, logistics, entertainment, and AI. Jeff Bezos called it day one thinking, always exploring new frontiers. The result: competitors never know which Amazon initiative will become the next AWS-level disruption, so they can't focus their counter strategies effectively. Your unpredictability portfolio. Allocate 10% of your time or resources to exploring 3 completely different opportunities. Don't announce these explorations. Keep them invisible until they show promise. This creates strategic options while keeping competitors guessing about your next move. The ultimate strategic advantage is making your competitors' planning impossible. When they can't predict your next move, they can't prepare effective counter strategies. What 3 experimental initiatives could you start this month to create strategic unpredictability? These 5 weapons become exponentially more powerful when combined. Tesla demonstrates this perfectly: strategic positioning, strategic invisibility, strategic adaptability, strategic concentration, and strategic unpredictability. Working together. If you're finding these strategic weapons valuable, hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on. This helps more strategists discover these frameworks. And here's the crucial question: which of these 5 weapons will you implement first? Choose one and commit to mastering it in the next 30 days. But mastering these weapons is only the beginning. The true power lies in understanding the fundamental shift that makes all strategy possible. The insight that will transform your entire approach to competition. This is the moment where everything changes. Are you ready for the ultimate revelation? Here's the ultimate insight that changes everything. Sun Tzu's greatest teaching isn't about winning battles. It's about making battles unnecessary. The supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. This isn't pacifism, it's strategic transcendence. You don't compete in markets, you create markets where competition is irrelevant. Think about it: Apple didn't compete in the smartphone market. They created the smartphone market. Tesla didn't compete in the electric car market. They created the premium electric lifestyle market. Amazon didn't compete in retail. They created the everything store concept. These companies transcended competition by redefining the game entirely. This is the paradigm shift. Stop thinking about how to beat competitors. Start thinking about how to make competitors irrelevant. When you create new categories, establish new standards, or solve problems nobody else is addressing, you don't win the way competition, you transcend it entirely. This is why Sun Tzu emphasized finding the shu, the void, the empty space where no competition exists. When you build your your substance, your strength in that void, you become the sole occupant of valuable territory. You're not the best competitor, you're the only player in your category. This insight will guide everything we do next, where we'll transform these principles into a concrete 30-day action plan for transcending competition in your industry. The question is, are you ready to stop playing by existing rules and start creating your own game? Because that's exactly what we're going to do. Now comes the reality check. Every strategic principle we've discussed will face 4 predictable barriers. These aren't theoretical obstacles. They're the exact challenges that derail 89% of strategic initiatives. But here's what separates winners from casualties: anticipating these barriers and having precise countermeasures ready. Barrier 1: analysis paralysis. The Project Management Institute reports that 11.4% of organizational investment, that's $109 million per billion invested, is wasted due to delayed decisions. While you're perfecting your data, competitors are seizing the void. Amazon's Jeff Bezos built a $1 trillion empire using the 70% rule. Make decisions with 70% of the information you wish you had. Your paralysis antidote: set decision deadlines before starting analysis. Use decision, SLAs, service level agreements for choices. Strategic decisions, 72 hours, maximum. Tactical decisions, 24 hours. Operational decisions, 4 hours. Speed beats perfection in dynamic markets. Here's the shocking reality. Boston Consulting Group found that companies making decisions just 1 week faster than competitors achieve 15% higher profitability. That's not marginal. That's the difference between market leadership and irrelevance. When Netflix killed their DVD business at 97% revenue share, they chose speed over perfection. Barrier 2: organizational inertia. Proshi research shows 60% of employees actively resist strategic changes. But Microsoft's Satya Nadella proved this can be overcome. He didn't fight resistance, he channeled it into learning energy, transforming company culture from know-it-all to learn-it-all. The result: Microsoft's market value grew from $300 billion to over $3 trillion, a 10 times increase. Your inertia override. Start with volunteers, not resistors. Create strategic learning labs where early adopters experiment safely. Google's Project Aristotle found psychological safety increases team productivity by 35%. Remember Sun Tzu's wisdom about being extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. In this case, making change feel like discovery rather than disruption. Celebrate small wins publicly to build momentum, and create psychological safety for bigger transformations. Barrier 3, competitive learning. Your success attracts imitators. Tesla faced this when every automaker announced electric vehicle plans. But here's Tesla's genius: they didn't prevent copying. They accelerated innovation so fast that competitors were always copying outdated strategies. This is strategic jujitsu, using competitors copying against them. Google updates their search algorithm over 500 times per year, making it impossible for SEO competitors to simply copy. While others master yesterday's strategy, you've moved to tomorrow's battlefield. Your anti-copying protocol builds deep moats, advantages requiring years to replicate. Focus on systems, culture, and relationships, not just tactics. Make your visible success dependent on invisible infrastructure that competitors can't see or copy quickly. Barrier 4, resource constraints. McKinsey research shows companies focusing on 3 or fewer business areas are 52% more profitable than diversified competitors. Southwest Airlines mastered this by choosing one thing to dominate: point-to-point flights with operational excellence. Sun Tzu taught, by discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible, ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated, while the enemy must divide his. Southwest discovered competitors spreading across complex hub systems, so they concentrated on simple point-to-point efficiency. Your resource optimization matrix: apply the 80-20 rule ruthlessly. Identify the 20% of activities generating 80% of results. Then ask, what if we allocated 60% of our resources to just these high-impact initiatives? This is strategic concentration in practice. These barriers will test your resolve, but they're not insurmountable. They're the price of admission to strategic mastery. Companies that anticipate and overcome these obstacles don't just survive, they transcend their industries entirely. But what happens if you don't act? What if you remain reactive, letting competitors set the agenda while you respond? The mathematics of strategic passivity are brutal. InnoSight research shows S&P 500 company lifespans drop from the 3 years in 1965 to 21 years in 2020, projected to be just 12 years by 2027. Yahoo once controlled 60% of the search market, with a $125 billion valuation. Today, less than 3% market share, acquired for scraps, not from lack of talent or resources, but from strategic passivity. They reacted to Google instead of creating their own future. The pattern repeats: Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster, all giants felled by standing still. The greatest risk isn't failure, it's irrelevance. Standing still isn't maintaining position, it's falling behind at exponential speed. Every day you delay implementing these principles is a day competitors get closer to discovering the voids you could have occupied. You willing to pay that price? But here's the truth that changes everything. This doesn't have to be your fate. The difference between strategic winners and casualties isn't luck, timing, or resources. It's systematic application of timeless principles. Every company we've discussed, Netflix, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, face the same obstacles you're facing right now. What separated them was decisive action. The turning point is always the same. Someone decides that understanding principles isn't enough. They must implement them. That decision, that moment of commitment, is what we're reaching right now. The only question is, will you be the protagonist of your own transformation or a cautionary tale in someone else's case study? Sun Tzu understood this 2,500 years ago. His entire strategic framework exists for one purpose: to help you act with confidence when others are paralyzed by uncertainty. Do not repeat the tactics which have gained you one victory, but let your methods be regulated by the infinite variety of circumstances. This isn't just about being flexible. It's about having a systematic process for turning any circumstance into strategic advantage. That process is what we're building right now in your 30-day transformation protocol. This isn't theory. It's the exact roadmap that has transformed hundreds of organizations. From reactive followers to proactive market creators. Are you ready to become one of them? Here's your complete 30-day strategic transcendence protocol. the systematic implementation of everything we've discussed. This isn't aspirational philosophy, it's a proven transformation roadmap, used by organizations achieving 10 times industry average growth rates. Week 1 Strategic Foundation. Days 1 through 7, Foundation Audit and Void Detection. Your first action schedule. 3 90-minute sessions for deep strategic analysis. Use the void detection matrix we discussed earlier. Map your industry landscape. Identify the 3 biggest customer pain points. Competitors ignore and document the capabilities you possess that others don't. Here's the critical insight. Most leaders skip this foundational work rushing to tactics. That's why 80% of strategic initiatives fail. The companies that invest these 7 days in deep analysis achieve 3 times better execution results, according to McKinsey research. Think of it as sharpening the axe before chopping the tree. Your deliverable by day 7, a 2-page strategic void report, identifying exactly where you'll build uncontested market space. This document becomes your North Star for everything that follows. Don't move forward until this foundation is rock solid. Week 2, Strategic Positioning and Invisibility. Days 8 through 14, Initiative Acceleration and Stealth Capability Building. Now you execute the Initiative Acceleration Protocol. Take the void you identified and launch a strategic probe, a small, fast experiment to validate your positioning. This is where Sun Tzu's wisdom, whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy, will be fresh for the fight, becomes operational reality. You're not betting the company. You're strategically testing with controlled risk. Amazon's famous 2 pizza teams, small enough to be fed by 2 pizzas. Embody this principle perfectly. Simultaneously build your invisibility architecture. Use the strategic invisibility framework to develop proprietary processes, relationships, or technologies that competitors can't easily observe or copy. Google's search algorithm, Tesla's vertical integration, Amazon's fulfillment network. These weren't built overnight, but they started with deliberate 2-week sprints just like yours. Your deliverable by day 14-1 Active Strategic Probe. Gathering real market data plus documentation of 3 invisible capabilities you're developing. You're no longer theorizing. You're building competitive advantage in real time. Week 3 Strategic Adaptation and Concentration. Days 15 through 21. Feedback integration and resource reallocation. This is where most organizations stumble, but you won't, because you're following Sun Tzu's framework systematically. Analyze data from your strategic probe. What's working, what's not? Sun Tzu teaches, all men can see the tactics whereby I conquer. But what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. Your tactics may change based on feedback, but your strategy, occupying the void, remains constant. Now apply the force concentration matrix. Based on your probe results, reallocate resources dramatically. Move 20% of your time, budget, or team capacity from low-impact activities to your strategic initiative. This is uncomfortable. McKinsey research shows leaders resist resource reallocation 3 times more than they resist new investments. But this reallocation is where exponential returns come from. Your deliverable by day 21, an updated strategic adaptation report showing what you learned and how you're concentrating resources for maximum impact. You're practicing strategic evolution in compressed time. Week 4, Strategic Unpredictability and Scaling, days 22 through 30. Portfolio diversification and momentum building. You're entering the exponential phase. While maintaining your primary initiative, launch 2 additional strategic probes in related areas. This creates the unpredictability portfolio we discussed. Here's why this matters. Harvard Business School research shows organizations running multiple strategic experiments simultaneously are 67% more likely to achieve breakthrough innovations. You're not diluting focus, you're creating strategic options while keeping competitors guessing about your next move. Apply the momentum ignition engine. Identify 3 quick wins from your month's work. Results you can communicate broadly to build organizational energy. Remember Microsoft's cultural transformation? It started with small, visible wins that proved the new approach worked. Your wins do the same. Your deliverable by day 30, a strategic options portfolio, with 3 active initiatives at different stages, plus a documented plan for scaling the most promising one in month 2. You've transformed from reactive follower to proactive strategic architect in just 4 weeks. But here's the ultimate insight. This 30-day protocol isn't a one-time event. It's a cyclical process. Sun Tzu's principles aren't campaign tactics. They're ongoing operational systems. The organizations that master strategic competition run this cycle continuously, always identifying new voids, launching new probes, adapting based on feedback, and concentrating resources on what works. This is how Netflix transitioned from DVDs to streaming to content production. How Amazon evolved from books to everything to cloud computing. How Microsoft transformed from software, licensing to cloud services to AI platforms. They're not lucky. They're systematically applying the same principles you now possess. The Energy Council framework I mentioned earlier becomes critical here. Establish a monthly 90-minute session, just you or your leadership team, dedicated exclusively to strategic thinking. No operational discussions allowed. Use this time to run your strategic cycle. Identify voids, assess initiatives, reallocate resources, launch new probes. Companies implementing quarterly strategic reviews achieve 42% higher growth than those without structured strategic processes, according to Bain Research. Tilmanum Sarinic. But monthly reviews, what we call the Energy Council, compound this advantage exponentially because you're adapting 4 times faster than competitors. This isn't additional work. It's the most valuable work you can possibly do. It's the difference between building a career and building a legacy, between managing a business and creating an industry, between following the market and defining it. Now we reach the moment of truth. You understand the framework. You have the implementation protocol. You've seen the evidence from dozens of companies and hundreds of data points. The only remaining variable is your decision. Will you implement this? Or will you let it become another piece of interesting information that never transforms into action? Here's the uncomfortable reality. 93% of people who watch educational content never implement what they learn. They understand intellectually, appreciate theoretically, but never execute practically. The 7% who do implement achieve results that seem impossible to the 93%. Which group will you join? This is your defining choice, the one that determines whether you look back on this moment as the turning point or another missed opportunity. Sun Tzu wrote for warriors who face life or death consequences. You face market or irrelevance consequences. The stakes are different, but the principle is identical. Knowledge without execution is worthless. So here's my challenge to you. Before you leave this video, commit to one specific action within the next 24 hours. Not thinking about it or planning to implement. One concrete action. Schedule your first 90-minute strategic analysis session. Email your team about launching a strategic probe. Block your calendar for weekly strategic reviews. Research from the American Psychological Association shows people who commit publicly to specific actions with defined deadlines are 76% more likely to follow through than those who make private, vague commitments. So do this right now. Pause this video, leave a comment, stating the one action you're taking in the next 24 hours and when exactly you're doing it. I'll personally read your commitment and reply with strategic guidance, specific to your situation. This comment isn't just for accountability. It's your first act of strategic leadership. The moment you declare your intention publicly, you transform from audience member to active strategist. And here's what happens next. When you take that first action, something shifts. The overwhelming complexity of strategic transformation suddenly becomes a manageable sequence of steps. The fear of competition transforms into excitement about creating uncontested space. The burden of reactive management becomes the freedom of proactive creation. I've seen this transformation hundreds of times. The executive who thought his industry was too mature for innovation, who discovered 3 massive voids within his first week of analysis. The entrepreneur who felt too small to compete, who built an invisible capability that became her company's primary competitive advantage. The manager who believed change is too hard, who led her organization's most successful strategic pivot. These aren't exceptional people with unique advantages. They're individuals who understood Sun Tzu's timeless principles and committed to systematic implementation. They're proof that strategic mastery isn't about genius. It's about discipline, frameworks, and persistent execution. Sun Tzu ends the weak points and strong chapter with profound wisdom. Water shapes its course. According to the nature of the ground over which it flows, the soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare, there are no constant conditions. This is your ultimate strategic principle. Adapt systematically, not randomly. Change with purpose, not panic. Evolve based on frameworks, not feelings. Sun Tzu's teachings give you the systematic process for adaptation that creates consistent victory regardless of circumstances. You are now equipped with what took me 15 years of research, implementation, and refinement to develop a complete strategic operating system based on the world's oldest and most proven military text. You have the frameworks, the data, the examples, the implementation protocol. The only thing you lack is executed results. And that's what the next 30 days will deliver. But remember, strategic mastery is a journey, not a destination. This video ends, but your transformation is just beginning. In the description below, you'll find the complete Strategic Transcendence Workbook with every template, matrix, and protocol we discussed. Download it, use it, master it. And when you achieve your first strategic breakthrough, when you identify that void, build that invisible capability, or transcend that competition, come back and share your story in the comments. Your success inspires others and creates a community of strategic practitioners who elevate each other. Before you go, 3 final actions. First, if this video delivered value, smash that like button and subscribe with notifications on. This helps more strategists discover these frameworks. Second, share this video with one person who needs these strategic principles right now. Third, watch the next video in this Sun Tzu series, where we explore additional strategic frameworks for organizational transformation. Thank you for investing 60 minutes in your strategic development. Thank you for having the vision to see that ancient wisdom contains modern solutions. And thank you for being part of the 7% who don't just learn, who execute. Sun Tzu wrote, "The clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him." You are now the clever combatant. You impose your will on markets, not the reverse. You create the future rather than react to it. The next 60 minutes start now. Go implement your first strategic action. I'll be here in the comments, ready to support your transformation. Let's build your strategic mastery together. See you in the next video.